The Deep Space Monitoring Station picked up the signals first. Massive energy signatures moving through the outer rim of human territory, heading straight for the colony world of New Haven. Commander. Hayes stood before the tactical display in the bridge of the USS Defiant, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. The readings made his blood run cold. "Sir, we're looking at over 200 enemy vessels," reported Lieutenant Parks from the sensor station. "They're moving in a standard invasion formation." Hayes nodded grimly. The Krell Empire had finally made their move. For months, intelligence reports had warned of their growing aggression toward human colonies. The alien race had conquered dozens of systems, their technology far superior to most species they encountered. Now they had set their sights on humanity. "What's our status on reinforcements?" Hayes asked. "The nearest fleet is 6 days away, sir. Admiral Ross is moving the Third Fleet to intercept." But double quotes Parks trailed off, the implication clear. New Haven would fall long before help arrived. The colony housed nearly 2 million civilians, mostly families who had left Earth, seeking a better life among the stars. They had no military defenses beyond a few orbital platforms that would barely slow down a Krell assault force. Hayes walked to the main view screen, staring out at the stars. The Defiant was alone out here, one ship against an entire invasion fleet. Most commanders would retreat, live to fight another day. But Hayes had grown up on New Haven before joining the Navy. His sister still lived there with her children. "Sir?" Parks waited for orders. "Set course for New Haven. Maximum burn," Hayes commanded. All hands to battle stations. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. They all knew the math. One ship, even the most advanced in the human fleet, against 200 Krell warships. It was suicide. "Sir, perhaps we should wait for the Third Fleet," suggested his second officer, Lieutenant Commander Bell. "We could coordinate a proper assault." Hayes turned from the view screen. "Those people don't have 6 days, Commander. We're all they've got." The Defiant was indeed humanity's finest warship. Built with the latest technology, she carried experimental weapon systems and defensive capabilities that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. Her fusion drives could outrun almost anything in space, and her adaptive armor could withstand tremendous punishment. But she was still just one ship dot as they raced toward New Haven. Hayes reviewed everything they knew about Krell tactics. The aliens favored overwhelming force, using their superior numbers to crush resistance quickly. Their ships were powerful but predictable, following standard attack patterns that had served them well against other species. What they didn't understand was human unpredictability. "Time to intercept?" Hayes asked. 4 hours at current speed," Parks replied. "The Krell fleet will reach New Haven's orbit in approximately 4 hours and 20 minutes. 20 minutes. That gave them almost no margin for error. Hayes called his department heads to the bridge. Chief Engineer Martinez, Weapons Officer Thompson, and Navigation Specialist Davies gathered around the tactical display. "Gentlemen, I'll be honest with you," Hayes began. "The odds aren't good. We're outnumbered 200 to 1. But we have advantages the Krell don't expect. Our ship is faster, more maneuverable, and carries weapons they've never encountered before." He paused, meeting each officer's eyes. "I won't order anyone to stay. If you want to take the shuttles and evacuate, I'll understand." Martinez spoke first. "Sir, my engines are running perfectly." "We're not going anywhere," Thompson nodded. "My weapons are ready, Commander. Let's show these aliens what humans can do." Davies smiled grimly. "I know every asteroid field and nebula in this system, sir. We can use them." Hayes felt pride swell in his chest. This was why humanity had survived and thrived among the stars. When faced with impossible odds, they didn't back down. They found a way to win. "All right then," Hayes said. "Here's what we're going to do. The plan was audacious, bordering on insane. Use the system's asteroid field to break up the Krell formation, then hit them with everything the Defiant had. The experimental plasma cannons could punch through Krell shields, and their new missile systems could track multiple targets simultaneously. But it would require perfect timing, incredible skill, and more than a little luck. As the Defiant approached the edge of the system, long-range sensors began picking up individual Krell ships. They were massive, dark vessels bristling with weapons. Each one was twice the size of the Defiant. "Sir, they're hailing us," Parks reported. Hayes straightened his uniform. "Put them on screen." The view screen flickered, showing a reptilian face with cold, predatory eyes. "Human vessel," the alien commander spoke in accented English. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Hayes stepped forward. "This is Commander Hayes of the UES's Defiant. You are ordered to leave this system immediately." The Krell commander's laugh was harsh and grating. "One ship? You send one ship against the might of the Krell Empire? Your species is even more foolish than we believed." "We'll see about that," Hayes replied, cutting the transmission. The battle for New Haven was about to begin. Asterisk. The asteroid field stretched across millions of kilometers, a maze of spinning rock and metal debris left over from the system's formation. Hayes had spent countless hours as a child watching the asteroids tumble through space from New Haven's observation domes. Now that knowledge might save 2 million lives. "Take us into the field, Davies," Hayes ordered. Pattern Delta 7. The Defiant slipped between the massive rocks like a needle threading through cloth. Behind them, the Krell fleet approached in their standard battle formation, a broad wall of ships designed to overwhelm any opposition through sheer firepower. "They're not breaking formation, sir," Parks reported. "Still coming straight through." Hayes smiled. The Krell had conquered weaker species by following the same tactics over and over. They had never faced an enemy that used the battlefield itself as a weapon. "Wait for it," Hayes murmured, watching the tactical display. The lead Krell ships entered the asteroid field at full speed, maintaining their tight formation. Hayes counted seconds, watching as more and more enemy vessels committed to the narrow passages between the larger asteroids. "Now, Thompson, target the big rock at coordinates 77 Alpha." The Defiant's experimental plasma cannons fired in perfect sequence. The superheated energy beams struck a massive asteroid directly above the Krell formation. The ancient rock, weakened by millions of years of cosmic radiation, cracked and began to break apart. Thousands of smaller fragments rained down on the alien ships. Their shields flared and sparked as debris pounded their hulls. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships broke away to avoid the falling rocks. "Beautiful," whispered Davies, but Hayes was already moving to the next phase. "Hard to port. Bring us around behind their left flank." The Defiant danced through the asteroid field with impossible grace. Her advanced navigation systems calculated trajectories in real time, finding paths through the debris that seemed too narrow for any ship to follow. The Krell vessels, built for straightforward combat, struggled to navigate the treacherous field. "Target acquired," Thompson announced. Krell destroyer isolated from the main group. "Fire." The plasma cannon spoke again. The brilliant beams cut through space and struck the enemy ship's shields. The alien vessel's defenses held for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing. The follow-up missiles found their mark, and the destroyer exploded in a ball of expanding gas and twisted metal. "First blood to us." Thompson grinned. The Krell were already adapting. Their fleet began to spread out, using smaller groups to navigate the asteroid field. They were learning, but Hayes had expected that. He had studied their combat records from other campaigns. "They're trying to surround us," Parks warned. "3 groups moving to cut off our escape routes." Asterisk. Hayes nodded. Time for the next surprise. Martinez, give me everything the fusion drives have got. We're going hunting. The Defiant suddenly accelerated to her maximum speed, racing deeper into the asteroid field. The Krell ships tried to follow, but their heavier vessels couldn't match the human ship's agility. Hayes led them on a deadly game of cat and mouse through the spinning rocks. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV. Parks called out. Krell cruiser, dead ahead. The enemy ship was trying to use a large asteroid as cover, waiting to ambush the Defiant as she passed. But Hayes had spotted the trap from kilometers away. Thompson, prepare the new missile spread. Davies, swing us around that asteroid cluster on the starboard side. The Defiant appeared to take the bait, heading straight for the ambush. At the last second, she rolled and dove beneath the asteroid, coming up behind the Krell cruiser. The enemy captain had only moments to realize his mistake before the human ship's missiles tore his vessel apart. 2 down, Hayes announced to the bridge crew. 198 to go, but the Krell were getting organized. Their scattered groups were beginning to communicate, coordinating their movements through the field. Soon they would have the Defiant trapped between multiple forces. Sir, long-range sensors are picking up movement from the main fleet, Parks reported. They're sending 50 ships around the far side of the field to cut us off. Hayes studied the tactical display. The aliens were using their numbers advantage, spreading out to cover all possible escape routes. It was a sound strategy that would work against most opponents. Unfortunately for them, Hayes wasn't planning to escape. Set course for the densest part of the field, he ordered, where those big asteroids are clustered together. Sir, the passages through there are barely wide enough for our ship, Davies protested. Exactly. The Krell ships won't be able to follow us in formation. They'll have to come at us 1 or 2 at a time. Bell looked skeptical. That's still terrible odds, sir. Hayes watched the enemy ships converging on their position. Maybe, but it's better than fighting 200 at once. Besides, I have one more trick they won't expect. The Defiant dove toward the heart of the asteroid field, with dozens of Krell ships in pursuit. Hayes checked the chronometer. They had been fighting for 27 minutes. New Haven still had less than 4 hours before the main invasion force arrived. Time to even the odds a little more. Asterisk. The heart of the asteroid field was a maze of spinning death. Massive rocks tumbled end over end, their surfaces scarred by countless collisions over millions of years. The spaces between them were barely wide enough for a single ship, and those passages shifted constantly as the asteroids followed their ancient orbital dance. Hayes guided the Defiant through this deadly labyrinth with the skill of a master pilot. Behind them, the Krell ships struggled to follow. Their larger vessels scraped against asteroid walls, sending showers of sparks cascading through space. Contact, dead ahead, Parks announced. They've got a ship waiting for us at the far end of this passage. Hayes could see it on the tactical display. A Krell destroyer positioned perfectly to blast them as they emerged from between 2 massive asteroids. There was no room to maneuver, nowhere to dodge. Thompson, can you get a lock on that ship? Negative, sir. The asteroids are blocking our targeting sensors. Hayes made a split-second decision. Martinez, cut main engines. Davies, use the maneuvering thrusters to spin us 90 degrees. The Defiant suddenly rotated in the narrow passage, presenting her belly to the waiting destroyer. It looked like a surrender or a catastrophic navigation error. The Krell captain took the bait. His ship moved forward, closing the range for a killing shot. That was when Hayes revealed his trap. Fire dorsal weapons. The Defiant's top-mounted cannons, normally used for anti-fighter defense, opened fire. The Krell destroyer's shields were positioned to stop attacks from the front or sides, not from directly below. The plasma beams punched through the weak spot in their defenses and crippled the enemy ship's engines. Target disabled, Thompson reported with satisfaction, but their victory was short-lived. Long-range sensors showed more Krell ships moving to block every exit from the asteroid field. The aliens had finally figured out what Hayes was doing. "Sir, they're not following us anymore," Parks observed. "The main force is taking position outside the field." Hayes nodded grimly. The Krell commander had learned from his losses. Instead of chasing the Defiant through the dangerous maze of asteroids, he was using his ships to create a cage. Sooner or later, the human ship would have to emerge, and when she did, the entire fleet would be waiting. "They're being smart," Bell admitted. "We can hide in here, but we can't stop their invasion from inside the field. Time to New Haven orbit?" Hayes asked. 3 hours, 42 minutes. Parks replied. Hayes weighed their options. They had destroyed 8 Krell ships so far, barely making a dent in the invasion force. The Defiant was fast and deadly, but she was still just one ship against nearly 200. Eventually, their luck would run out. "Sir," Davies spoke up from his station, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Krell fleet. They're charging their main weapons." Hayes felt ice form in his stomach. "All of them?" "Yes, sir. It looks like they're planning to—" The first barrage lit up space like a miniature star going nova. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles struck the outer edge of the asteroid field. Ancient rocks that had survived for millions of years were vaporized in seconds. "They're going to destroy the entire field," Bell said in disbelief. The Krell were using their overwhelming firepower to eliminate Hayes' advantage. If they couldn't chase the Defiant through the asteroids, they would simply destroy all the asteroids. It was a brute force solution that perfectly matched their military doctrine. Another massive barrage struck deeper into the field. The Defiant shuddered as shock waves from nearby explosions rattled her hull. Asteroid fragments peppered their shields like deadly hail. "Damage report." Hayes snapped. "Shields down to 87%, Martinez called from engineering. "Hull integrity holding, but we can't take much more of this." Hayes watched the tactical display as section after section of the asteroid field disappeared under the Krell bombardment. In less than an hour, their protective maze would be nothing but empty space and debris. "Sir, we need to move," Davies urged. "If we stay here, we'll be caught in the destruction." Hayes was already calculating angles and distances. The Krell had made a mistake in their eagerness to flush him out. Their ships were spread in a wide circle around the field, firing inward. That meant their formation was thin in some places. "There," he said, pointing to a gap in the enemy line. "Only 12 ships covering that sector. 12 ships is still terrible odds," Bell pointed out. Hayes smiled grimly. "Maybe, but it's better than 200. Thompson, prepare all weapons for a maximum intensity barrage. Martinez, I need every bit of power you can give me for the engines." "Sir, if we leave the field now, we'll be completely exposed," Parks warned. "I know, but we can't protect New Haven from in here. It's time to take this fight to them." The Defiant turned toward the thinnest part of the Krell line, and she accelerated to attack speed. Asterisk. The Defiant burst from the dying asteroid field like a missile launched from hell. Behind her, the ancient rocks continued to explode under the relentless Krell bombardment, creating a wall of fire and debris that lit up the darkness of space. Ahead waited 12 enemy warships, their weapons already swinging toward the approaching human vessel. Hayes had perhaps 30 seconds before they opened fire. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Thompson, target their lead ship with everything we've got." The Defiant's experimental weapon systems came online simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and guided missiles all fired at once, creating a devastating barrage that overwhelmed the lead Krell destroyer's defenses. The alien ship vanished in a brilliant explosion, but 11 enemy vessels remained, and now they were firing back. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the Defiant's shields with tremendous force. The human ship bucked and rolled under the impacts, her defensive screens flickering dangerously. Asterisk. Shields down to 60%, Martinez reported. We can't take this kind of punishment for long. Hayes was already plotting their next move. The Defiant was fast, but she couldn't outrun that many ships firing at once. He needed a different kind of advantage. Davies set course for the inner system. Maximum burn. Sir, that takes us toward New Haven, Bell protested. We'll be leading them straight to the colony. Trust me, Hayes replied, though he could hear the doubt in his own voice. The Defiant accelerated past the Krell ships, taking more hits as she raced toward the system center. Behind them, the entire enemy fleet began to converge on their position. Hayes had given them exactly what they wanted, a clear shot at the troublesome human ship. Time to New Haven orbit? Hayes asked. At current speed, 47 minutes, Parks replied. The Krell fleet will be right behind us. Hayes nodded. 47 minutes to come up with a miracle dot as they raced inward. Passing the orbit of the system's outer planets, Hayes studied every piece of sensor data he could find. There had to be something he could use, some advantage he hadn't considered yet. Then he saw it. The system's star was entering an active phase, its surface churning with massive solar flares. In 6 hours, it would release a coronal mass ejection that would flood the inner system with deadly radiation. 6 hours was too long. But maybe ... double quotes Martinez. What would happen if we destabilized one of those solar flares? The chief engineer looked up from his damage control reports. Sir, you mean artificially trigger a coronal mass ejection? Could we do it? Martinez thought for a moment. Theoretically, yes. If we overloaded our plasma cannons and fired them directly into a flare at exactly the right moment. But sir, we'd have to get incredibly close to the star. The radiation alone would cook us. What about the Krell? They'd be fried too, sir. But they are behind us. They could turn away before the radiation hit. Hayes studied the tactical display again. The Krell fleet was spread out in pursuit formation, trying to surround the Defiant before she could reach New Haven. If he could get them to follow him, closer to the star, ... double quotes new plan, Hayes announced. Davies, plot a course that takes us around the star's north pole. Make it look like we're trying to use the gravity well to slingshot toward the outer system. That's actually not a bad escape plan, Bell admitted. It's not an escape plan, Hayes corrected. Thompson, start charging the plasma cannons for maximum overload. I want every bit of power we can generate. Understanding dawned on his officers' faces. They were going to fly straight into hell and try to drag their enemies with them. Sir, the radiation exposure alone will kill us, Parks warned. Not if we're fast enough. Martinez, how long can our shields hold against solar radiation at close range? Maybe 10 minutes, sir. 15 if we're lucky. That'll have to do. The Defiant swept around the star's northern hemisphere, her shields glowing white-hot as they deflected the incredible heat and radiation. Behind them, the Krell fleet followed, their ships strung out in a long line as they tried to match the human vessel's dangerous course. Plasma cannons charged to 150% of normal capacity, Thompson reported. Sir, if we fire at this level, we'll burn out the entire system. Understood. Davies, bring us around. I want a direct shot at that flare. The Defiant curved through space, diving toward a massive solar eruption that towered millions of kilometers above the star's surface. The Krell ships, committed to their pursuit, followed helplessly. All ships, fire at will. The enemy commander's transmission crackled over the cum system. Energy beams filled the space around the Defiant, but the star's magnetic field and radiation played havoc with their targeting systems. Most shots went wide. Target acquired, Thompson announced. Firing all plasma cannons, the overloaded weapons unleashed a torrent. of energy directly into the heart of the solar flare. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star exploded. The coronal mass ejection erupted from the star like the wrath of an angry god. Billions of tons of superheated plasma and deadly radiation burst outward in an expanding wave of destruction that moved at nearly the speed of light. Hayes had perhaps 3 seconds to act. Emergency jump now, he screamed. Davy's hands flew over his controls, engaging the Defiant's experimental jump drive. The human ship vanished in a flash of twisted space-time just as the radiation wave reached their position. They reappeared 50,000 kilometers away, their hull glowing red-hot from the brief exposure to the solar storm. Behind them, the Krell fleet had no time to react. The radiation wave struck the alien ships like a tsunami of fire. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, offered no protection against the raw fury of a star. One by one, the enemy vessels simply stopped functioning as their electronics were fried and their crews were killed by lethal doses of radiation. "Sensor sweep," Hayes ordered, though he could barely speak through his scorched throat. Parks worked frantically at his station. "I'm reading. Massive system failures across the entire Krell fleet. Sir, I don't think any of them survived." Hayes leaned back in his command chair, hardly daring to believe it. Through the view screen, he could see the expanding cloud of plasma still racing outward from the star. Scattered throughout the glowing mass were the dark hulks of nearly 200 Krell warships, their crews dead, their weapons silent. "Damage report," he managed to ask. Martinez's voice was hoarse. "We took a lot of radiation, sir. The jump drive is completely burned out, and we've got hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. But the ship is intact. Casualties? 17 crew members in sickbay with radiation poisoning. Dr. Kelly says they'll recover with treatment." Hayes nodded. 17 injured out of a crew of 300 against an enemy fleet of 200 ships. It was a miracle any of them were still alive. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from New Haven," Parks reported. "Governor Williams wants to speak with you." The main view screen flickered, showing the face of an elderly woman Hayes remembered from his childhood. Governor Williams had been the colony's leader for 20 years, guiding its growth from a small outpost to a thriving world. "Commander Hayes," she said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "We monitored the entire battle. What you and your crew have done. There aren't words." Hayes straightened his uniform as best he could. "Just doing our job, Governor. New Haven is secure. One ship," she whispered. "One ship against their entire invasion fleet. The galaxy will hear about this, Commander. Everyone will know what humans are capable of when we're pushed too far." 3 days later, the U.E.'s Defiant limped into New Haven's orbital shipyard under her own power. The damage was severe, but repairable, and the crew had become heroes across human space. News of the battle had spread through the quantum communication network, reaching every human colony and outpost. Admiral Ross arrived with the Third Fleet to find the threat already eliminated. He stood on the Defiant's bridge, staring at the sensor logs that recorded the battle. 200 ships, he murmured. "Hayes, this is going to change everything. When the other alien races hear about this, they'll think twice before threatening human territory." Hayes was tired, more exhausted than he'd ever been in his life. But he could see the truth in the Admiral's words. For too long, humanity had been seen as a minor power, a young race still learning its place in the galaxy. No one would make that mistake again. The Krell Empire, when they learned of their fleet's destruction, immediately sued for peace. Other hostile species that had been considering attacks on human worlds quietly abandoned their plans. The story of the Defiant's victory spread beyond human space, becoming legend among a dozen different civilizations. Years later, when military historians studied the battle, They would call it the moment humanity announced its arrival as a major galactic power. But for Hayes and his crew, it was simpler than that. They had protected their home. Standing in his quarters aboard the repaired Defiant, Hayes looked out at New Haven turning slowly in space below. The colony was safe, its people free to continue building their lives among the stars. Children who had been born on distant Earth were now having children of their own on this new world, expanding humanity's reach across the galaxy. The Krell had underestimated one human warship. The cost of that mistake had been their entire fleet, and the lesson would echo through space for generations to come. Never underestimate humanity when they're protecting what they love. The end